Welcome to one of my many known bonus features. These are original case study notes from March 22nd, 2020. I have no conscious memory of any of these experiences, and I'm very fascinated to learn about everything that has led to where I am today. So please feel free to enjoy and learn as we go. In these videos, I talk a lot about the experience of inner and outer realities having independent activations within neurobiological applications. Basically, independent operations between inner and outer realities stemming from independent neural activity. And I go into a concept of a spectrum of inner persons that can be applied for any type of unicorder, including adaptable consciousness condition or living with multiple inner persons. I talk a little bit about some coping and healing strategies that I apply, and I share some other stuff as well. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being you, and enjoy this known documentary bonus feature.
The big part of living with adaptable consciousness condition is a disconnect within the memory systems. The present tense me does not have a natural point of reference of existing in relation to the self that has been. So I have to manually connect present moment me with the past moments of me, who I was a year ago, who I was 5 years ago, who I was 10 years ago, who I was 20 years ago, in order for there to be any kind of sense of self that feels accurate, if you will. The sense of self is not naturally, innately accessible. And my theory is that it's because of the division of memory systems and because of the disconnect within the neural networks that contain various aspects of past and present memories. And present memories meaning like, what's happening now, where I live, like the basic information of my present experience from very recent memories, and past memories being my whole lifetime of memories. So the disconnect of memory systems affecting, my theory is that that's what's affecting the sense of self and causing it to be not naturally accessible. And then either on top of that or within that or beside it, I don't know, there's a disconnect between internal and external realities. And so anytime I can connect my internal reality with who I am externally, and anytime I can connect my external sense of reality with my internal reality, there's just like total clarity, total peace. The anxiety's gone, the depression's gone, everything. But it's this very manual process that takes my full focused attention. Full focused attention. I can't fully do that and be doing anything else. And so a disconnect between internal and external realities that causes constant anxiety and fairly consistent depression and a variety of other battles. My internal and external realities are not naturally connected. And so one of the things that happens that allows for some level of self-soothing is to be mindfully present with my internal reality while being mindfully present with my external reality. They're not connected, but they're hanging out in presence at the same time. Like they're not connected with one another, but they're both connected to the sense of present moment experience, just separately. And so an example is I'm sitting here and I'm creating a design for a t-shirt for my super awesome online store, which I love, and it's so fun, and I'm so grateful for it. I love the merchandise. I love wearing our merchandise. I love selling our merchandise. So I'm here creating this thing, and the backdrop of my mind is just feeling anxiety and depression, and I want to lay down, and I want to give up, and I don't want to be here, and this is scary. And so to self-soothe that, external me is focused on this task at hand, and internal me is repeating mantras or singing. And so there's a song that we used to create a body memory one time, and so it's playing like a radio in my head in a completely separate realm of conscious from my present moment experience out here. And it soothes the anxiety that is caused from the disconnect between internal and external realities a little bit. And so my theory is that there's this spectrum of inner persons within multi-consciousness, and on one end of the spectrum is the present day normal life self, and on the other end of the spectrum is the child parts or inner child. And then in between are all different kinds of protector states of consciousness that allow for functionality and cope with the various amnesic barriers. And so there's this spectrum of inner persons within multi-consciousness. It goes from the normal life self to the child part, and then going from this way to this way, there's the external protectors, parts of consciousness, or inner persons within multi-consciousness who are very externally oriented. They can do physical tasks, they can socially engage, etc. And they don't really have intimate connection with any of the traumatic stress that's lodged in the body-brain system. And then moving along the spectrum, there are inner persons who are inner and outer protectors, where they're very functional, they can engage socially, they can do a certain level of physical tasks, etc., but they do carry some form of traumatic response. And then there are the inner protectors who carry the trauma and hold those memories, and they don't really have access to memories beyond that. And that's where some of the more, parts who may experience disability come in, or parts who experience themselves as persecutors come in, or parts that are just completely traumatic response, and that's the entirety of their being for the most part. And it's a spectrum, right? So it's not necessarily just one thing, but it's somewhere along the spectrum that an inner person will experience themselves in, relation to this topic anyway. And then the far end are the child parts. And so healing is about connecting the present day normal life self with the child part who carries age regression, who carries the core unconscious memories in the system, who carries the core of the disrupted attachment development, etc. And that requires the normal part connecting with all these different protector parts, and the protector parts giving space for the child part to come more from the inner world to the outer world. And each inner person carries their own unique memory system access, and so that's a process of connecting the memory system so that the normal present day life self person within multi-consciousness can have neurophysiological access to the child parts or inner child. But that whole process, in that whole process, there's this disconnect between inner and outer worlds. And my theory is that the inner world is corely connected with the inner child, and the outer world is primarily connected with the normal life self. And I don't know what it would take to merge the inner and outer worlds. They can have some level of presence with each other, but I don't know what it would take to get to a place where they're actually integrated. Because we've done the integration stuff. I'm sure there's always more, and it's a journey and stuff, but we've processed the trauma. We've connected present day memories with childhood memories. We've connected all the different years. We've connected all the different protector parts with different aspects of the normal life self, present day, present tense person. We've connected emotional heart space outreach so that the child parts can be present and have space to be themselves and have space to heal and grow and whatnot. And so I'm curious what it would take to connect the inner and outer worlds, because it is the core of the anxiety, and I think it could be the core of the dissociation altogether. A lot of the dissociation is from traumatic response and stuff, but once that's healed, there's still this disconnect between inner and outer worlds. And so I think my theory is that the core of the dissociation and the core of the anxiety and the core of the depression come from a disconnect between inner and outer worlds. And it seems like it would be related to memory systems, but I don't know. So, just some case study notes. And so during that, I can be out here in my outer world, and my inner world's having a totally separate experience, a completely separate experience of consciousness. I'm out here relaxing, enjoying the beauty, feeling safe, and my inner world is having a completely separate experience. And it might be age regression, it might be terror, it might be fear, it might be loneliness. And there's all these sensations within the internal world. And, using melodies and imageries really helps. So my theory, one of the theories, is that the internal world is the right brain hemisphere and the external world is the left brain hemisphere. And a disconnect between communicative connectivity of consciousness is where the disconnect of inner and outer worlds stems from. And so I don't know if that's related with memory systems or if it's just general brain region connectivity and the particulars of neural networks. Or are they the same thing? Do memories develop the style of neural networks and there's no separation? It's both. It's the memory systems and the neural networks, because the memory systems create the shape and style of the neural networks, if you will. You know, and then are we talking memories that are just like autobiographical? Or are we talking all types of memories? Are we talking memory stored in a part of the brain, or memory stored everywhere in all the ganglia in the brain and the body? You know, so these are just some like general observations and theories that I would love to dive into more specifically with neuroscientists who could help fill in some of the gaps of what I don't know. Because I know a lot, I've learned a lot, but it's still only been, 2-3 years of research on my own. And I would just love the opportunity to collaborate with neuroscientists who have, dedicated a lot more time and energy to learning this stuff and combine their knowledge with my observations and explore these theories. I believe it could really benefit humankind to explore the memory systems, to explore some of the stuff, to explore the particulars of healing traumas and this, that, the other thing, healing amnesia, whatnot. It's a beautiful day, and not all of me gets to experience it, and I want to know why and how I can help it. Because all of me deserves to experience this beauty. All of me deserves to be fully present. All of me deserves to be out here having this miraculous present moment experience of physicality through our consciousness. But that's not the case. And I want to know why and how to help heal that. Okay, case study is our third video today. Case study notes, afternoon of Sunday, March 22nd, 2020. So another cool observation theory thing with all of this is that the internal world, connected with imagery and melodies, seems to be highly in tune with the unconscious memory system. So when there's anxiety, there's a deep craving for something that's familiar. A song that we know the words to and can sing along with, or that the mind will know what the next beat and word are that are coming. A familiar place, a familiar person, which is where proximity-seeking behavior kind of comes in an attempt to relieve the anxiety because of the unconscious dissociation that's happening because of some kind of brain region disconnect. Oh, I lost my train of thought with that one. And I believe I lost my train of thought because there was an emotion around one of the words that I said. I think it was dissociation. So I said a word, and there was an emotional sensation, and the emotion cut off my continuity of thought train as I attempted to articulate the particulars through descriptive verbal narrative. And that kind of, again, goes to my theory of the left and right brain disconnect of there's an emotion happening in the right brain, and because that's being activated, the activations of language in the left brain suddenly glitched out. It was like a nanosecond, but it was like enough to lose my train of thought and just notice a blank space where there was once this very clearly formed sentence that I was about to say. Rubbing my face with my left hand. It's coming from my right brain hemisphere. So, my theory, or not my theory, my observation is that the aspects of neurophysiological applications of consciousness associated with melodies, imageries, etc., emotions, internal world, seem very, very intimately connected with the unconscious memory systems. This means that when they're that aspect of consciousness is present and experiencing anxiety, there's a craving for something that's familiar. Likewise, if we go somewhere and there's body memories in that space, that aspect of consciousness becomes activated. Closing my eyes really helps me focus. And my theory with that is because I'm disconnecting the visual stimulus, which I believe is processed in the right brain hemisphere. Right brain, I mean, it goes through both brain hemispheres, but the right brain is very visual. And so cutting off the visual stimulation, my theory is that it allows for increased language access in my left brain because they're not having the same communicative connectivity of consciousness simultaneously. And so reducing what's happening over here helps me have access over here. That's kind of my thought, because I always have so much better clarity of thought, mind, and I open my eyes and everything's clearer. I can see clearer. Myself and my world feels more real. Okay. Oh yeah, rubbing with the left hand. And then that aspect of consciousness that I've been describing, that's connected with imagery and melodies and visual stimulus and emotional sensations and the inner world, seems to be connected with unconscious memory systems. When there's anxiety, seeking something that's familiar internally or externally, and then the flip side of that is there can become anxiety if body memories are activated, if we're in a certain state of consciousness and we're in a place where there are a lot of body memories. They become activated, and that's where implicit projections happen. And that means that an implicit style of memory, either an emotional memory and or an implicit procedural approach avoidance styled body memory, would become activated in a way that it's being projected into the present moment experience of reality. It's not just a past tense memory, it's instead a present moment experience through the consciousness. And so that aspect of consciousness is connected with body memories, repetition, repeated experiences, unconscious memory systems. The other side of this spectrum of consciousness within adaptable consciousness, where there's multiple inner persons and some kind of unique disconnect within the communicative connectivity of consciousness, the other end of that spectrum, and I associate this with child parts. What I've been describing, I associate with child parts in the right brain hemisphere. That's kind of a theory more than an observation. And then, well, no, it is associated more with child parts. The theory, that's an observation. The theory is that it's right brain hemisphere, but I don't have a way to prove that until I collaborate with neuroscientists and we can do brain scans when I'm experiencing certain things. So the other side of the spectrum, as I talked about in my last video, was spectrum of dissociative inner persons, or spectrum of inner persons within multi-consciousness. And that's the present day normal life self. So on that end of the spectrum, there is an increased ability to process new experiences. This aspect of consciousness understands experience through a collage of experiential sensations from past memory data. This aspect of consciousness is much more capable of having new experiences, where the present moment is the present moment. Both hands rubbing. That's a good sign. That means there's some kind of connection going on. That's good. I like when both sides of my body are doing something simultaneously. It's always a good sign. Yeah, too. Yes, you. And so... sit out here in the sunshine. And so this end of the spectrum has a much increased, much more access, much greater increase of ability within the cognitive capacities of consciousness to have new experiences, to be in the present moment where it is actually a presently unfolding moment, rather than a collage of implicit data or just anxiety because the present moment is not being fully processed. This aspect of consciousness has increased access with the external world. Physicality seems like physicality. This actually seems like a physical experience. The other side of the spectrum, what I was describing before, everything's very energetic. Physicality is unsolidified. It can waver in its definition. It can be moldable, meshable, pliable, movable, depending on the energy of the experience and the style of implicit projections or the style of emotional engagement. And so physicality is not always physicality. Everything is experienced much more as energy. This side of things, and that's also another little piece of data or evidence supporting my theory that this is right brain. This is a right brain dominant experience, or this is a right-brained aspect of consciousness having its own separate realm of experience from other aspects of the neurophysiological applications of consciousness. And then over here, we've got the other experience that's separate. External world, physicality actually feels like physicality. Things don't have the massive amounts of connotations and emotional triggers and past memory projections and stuff. Everything's present moment. It's physical. It's happening here and now. It's happening in the external world of experience. That's always a good sign. That's a sign of my autonomic nervous system relaxing. I never yawn when I'm tired. I only yawn when my nervous system is relaxing because something within the things that are causing dissociation are being soothed, which often happens when I put language to these indescribable experiences of consciousness, which is why I'm so grateful for this case study as a tool for healing. Case study as a tool for healing. And so this aspect of consciousness is having a totally different experience from that side. Completely separate experience of consciousness. Physical, present moment, and able to have new experiences, able to create new explicit memories. This aspect of consciousness cannot create explicit memories at all. There's no experience of explicit memories. The two primary styles of explicit memories are declarative and episodic. This aspect of consciousness has zero connectivity of consciousness with explicit memories. This side of consciousness is able to have explicit memories, episodic and declarative, and consciously retrievable. And so, consciously retrievable. And because they're consciously retrievable, they seem more related to physicality. It seems like the memories have a relationship with external physicality. The memory systems over here don't feel like they have a relationship with external physicality. They're very sensational. They're very internal. They're very unconscious. There's not a conscious access to them. So this side has access to explicit memory, the ability to create new memories. Ability to create new memories. And memories actually feel like they're related to physicality. That's the other really big deal one. Really big deal. And so sometimes experience comes only from here, and I'm completely disconnected from my internal reality, completely disconnected from internal needs, which can be a tricky place to be. Like, how do you tell if you're hungry or in pain or tired or, basic sensations if you're not connected with your internal needs? Another way to perceive this is more related with the mind, the conscious mind, and this is more related with the unconscious body. Just another, descriptive perspective. And so when it's only here, there's present moment things, the future seems achievable, life seems physical and externally oriented and physically experienced, and conscious memories seem possible, all this stuff. But there's not a natural connection with the internal reality. There's not an ability to be in tune with needs or past memories, like the unconscious memories that kind of create the backdrop of our personhood. But then likewise, if the experience is only coming from this realm of consciousness, then life is not physical. The present moment is always being reduced through implicit projections. There's a decreased ability for self-regulation because there's just this constant collage, mirage, eruption, activation of emotional sensations that may or may not have an identifiable cause. Life is energetic, and so there's a disconnect between the physical reality being experienced. There's just this kind of gap, this chasm. There's not an ability to create new memories or foresee a future other than with implicit projections. And everything activates implicit projections, like everything. Sights, sounds, smells, places, people, feelings, clothes, textures, tastes, visual stimulus, everything, the weather. Everything activates unconscious memories, and everything becomes a collage, which, you know, being right-brained, and since all of this is based in traumatic stress, a lot of times it's just very stressful projections. It's not frequently a beautiful projection. Those are nice when it happens, but they're pretty rare, unfortunately. And so it's a lot of stressful implicit projections, and a lot of emotional activations without this increased ability for self-regulation, because there's this like understanding of physicality and present moment and all of this other stuff, you know, and decreased access to conscious thought can also happen. Increased access to unconscious thought and decreased access to conscious thought. And that means that it's less manageable or controllable or adjustable, and it means that the thoughts happen a lot faster than conscious thoughts. So that's what's happening over there. And so healing means combining these worlds, which is something I'm working on. It's something I'm still trying to figure out. I haven't fully gotten there. Someday, but right now I'm still figuring it out. And so, and that's the other thing, self-recognition, because it's present moment and externally focused, and there's more of a sense of present day, externally accessible self. There's increased ability for self-recognition. Like when I look in a mirror, I see myself recording this video, or I see a picture of me. Increased ability for self-recognition. Over here, there's a decreased ability for present tense self-recognition. Fascinatingly enough, though, there can often be an ability for self-recognition from childhood photos. And so if I'm in this state of consciousness and I look at a picture of me between the ages of like 3 and 5, for example, there seems to be some fascinating form of resonance with that, whereas there is not a connection with who I am in the present day tense self. That doesn't always happen, but it's frequently. It's when a certain part of consciousness within this realm of experience is being present and activated in a way that's like consciously observable. There's not too much stress around the experience. So healing means bringing these worlds together. The core of adaptable consciousness condition seems to be division of the social engagement system through cranial nerves and the autonomic nervous system flow, and a division of memory systems within the connectivity of consciousness that affect perceptual awareness, decision-making, and access to a solidified sense of self, and a disconnect between internal and external realities as experienced through the neurophysiological applications of consciousness. Those three things seem to be at the core of adaptable consciousness condition. And so healing means bridging those things, bringing the two ends of the social engagement spectrum into a place where they can experience social engagement, and allowing for the regulated social engagement to know about these other aspects of consciousness and be mindful of, you know, their existence within the system. And then bridging the worlds of memories, bringing present day memories to past tense memories, bringing the explicit to the implicit, describing the indescribable, and bringing the internal to the physical, you know, kind of bridging those worlds. Manual connection of brain regions through the memory systems. Rubbing my eyes with both hands, that's a good sign of connecting the inside with both hemispheres simultaneously. And then the last piece, we've done those things. We've done all the healing. Well, I mean, all the healing is continual, but we've done a lot of work, seen a lot of progress on those two things, social engagement system and memories. It's been a very specific focus for the last year or so since we really pieced together these things. And so now it's figuring out how to get this third thing in a place of healing. The third thing being the disconnect between internal and external worlds. And we've done some work with that, described. There's actually a lot of work we've done with that. So one is this case study stuff. And so when we describe, put left brain language to the implicit sensations of things, we're helping bridge the worlds. When we are mindfully, consciously present with exercise and what the body's experiencing, that can help bring the worlds together. When we are eating and there's these sensations, and then we're paying attention to the way the sensation feels and describing it playfully internally. We have a cool game about this we've shared in a blog article. That helps bring the worlds together. So there's a few different things. Oh yeah, and then mirror exercises and memory experiments and moment-by-moment descriptions. And so a few different mirror exercises using theories or using concepts from brain spotting and other things that we've discovered and researched and stuff, like discovered personally and researched from what's known out there in the world. And so we use the mirror and connect our sense of self at different eye locations and whatnot, doing different things with our body. And so that has helped connect the internal and external worlds very gradually. And it's also helped with the memory systems. And then what was the other one? Descriptors. And so if I go through my moments and I describe internally aspects of the external stuff, it can help connect the two worlds. Meditation can help connect the two worlds as I'm being present with both realities simultaneously and connecting them through the power of my breath, and just gentle observation and gentle emotions. And speaking with my eyes closed, where I'm really tuning into my internal reality, but I'm also putting language in external reality, really helps. So these videos, but also like during my coaching calls, like when I'm on a consciousness consultant call, I'm very, very tuned in internally and externally. So I close my eyes and I'm tuned in to the processing of data in my consciousness and the way that my internal world is interpreting what's being said so we can offer the most effective help. But then I'm having a social engagement and I am vocalizing these thoughts and stuff. So that connects the internal and external worlds. So that's pretty awesome. So those are the main ways of connecting. And maybe it's just doing those things and continuing, but I feel like there's something else. I feel like there's something we haven't yet discovered about the internal and external disconnect, and I feel like that's going to bring a breakthrough of how to heal it. Just a feeling, though, so we'll see. So there's those three core things of adaptable consciousness condition, and describing the disconnect between internal and external worlds is something that we want to understand better and be able to share and articulate and express better for our case study. So, yeah. Thanks for joining us. Huzzah, hurrah! Okay, we're here with video number 4 for today's case study notes. Let's see. What's the best way to set this? Yeah, it's kind of fun to see me in the sky. So we noticed some pretty fascinating things while we were playing in the swimming pool. When there's no music, the internal reality can easily feel stressed. When there's music playing in headphones, cutting off the backdrop sounds of the surrounding world and only tuning into the music, there can be stress, but an opposite form of a stress. So when there's no music, the experience leans towards this left area that I was describing before. I guess might show as right on here, but my left, where it's external, physical, more associated with the mind. And when the music's playing in headphones, it's more towards this side of consciousness experience, more sensational, emotional, internal sensations, aware of the body. Only when there's loud music playing externally, so from a speaker, from a phone or a laptop, is too quiet for it to really work, then there can be connection with both realms in a way, because the music connects with this side, but being present with the external stuff connects with this side. And so that was pretty fascinating, because we noticed certain anxieties with certain things, but we weren't really sure the particulars. And it's because of the style in which the internal and external realms of consciousness are connecting with an unfolding experience. And then the other fascinating part was it's okay, it's all allowed. We are not our experience, and our experience is allowed to be unique and fascinating and mysterious. The other fascinating part was that doing certain types of strokes were anxiety provoking because of the way the eyes moved. So there's some swimming where the eyes just stay forward, or they just stay to the side. But doing the breaststroke, or I think that's what it's called, where you're doing this and you're turning your head side to side as you move your arms through the water. The eyes moving locations caused that swimming stroke to be highly anxiety provoking, whereas other swimming strokes were not, because the eye stayed in the same focal position during the entire lap across the pool. And with this disconnect between internal and external worlds, or a disconnect between mind and body, just depending how you want to describe the perceptual awareness of this, is difficulty interpreting body sensations. Because there's all of these physical sensations within the unconscious realm, but effectively interpreting the meaning of these sensations into the consciously perceivable mind present with external physicality is, it doesn't come naturally. It doesn't naturally happen. It's not an innate ability within the cognitive capacities of consciousness, or the neurophysiological applications of consciousness, the natural unconscious skill sets. Yeah, and then things get misinterpreted, and then something that means something, it feels like something else. Yeah, something, it feels like something different than it is. And so there could be times where the body is screaming in pain, hey, stop exercising, and the mind interprets it as needing more exercise. Or start to exercise and there's a wave of emotions and we think that that's a sign that we shouldn't be exercising. Or not being able to perceive the difference between like a healthy muscle burn or healthy exhaustion and like a neuroceptive activation of genuine danger. Faulty neuroception is one potential attribute of all of this, where it's hard to tell what's dangerous and what's not. I don't know if that's the right word to describe it, though. It's hard to tell what's a warning sign for something that could be validly a valid sign of potential harm, versus like a false alarm or whatever. Where there's an activation of an alarm, but it's not a present tense valid threat that should genuinely be a concern. And so, like, becoming exhausted from exercise could feel activating. Like, oh no, something's wrong because I'm out of breath. But it's not necessarily, like, a bad thing, you know? And then other times is, like, you know, opposite, where there could be a real something actually up and a valid concern or whatever, and it's not being registered in the brain. It's kind of just being dismissed as not valid or whatever. So anyway, false alarms in between the brain and the body occur because of, it seems, because of the disconnect between internal and external realms. The body and the mind, the internal and the external world, the energetic world and the physical world. Yeah, the sensational aspects of experience and the more consciously knowable aspects of experience. Eyes focused at a point to my left, and I can tell it's one of those things where I'm not looking there to look at the physical thing I'm looking there because this position of eye movements is accessing a part of the brain that's needed right now. The brain spotting technique uses this concept. It could be like a home base point of recalibration to the present moment. Yeah, I sense that because there's a little bit of stress, and that's kind of decreasing now. You? Yeah, baby. What's up? What you feeling? Tell me about it. Or I guess you need to show me it internally, and then I have to describe it, huh? I think that's why it wasn't working. If I'd ask you questions, there wasn't a solid response because you don't have the language for it. I need to internally observe you and then put language to it from my point of observation for it to be effectively communicated within the consciousness. She nods. She's noticing a sensation of overwhelm, but that's just because the brain feels like it needs to figure itself out right now, but it doesn't. This is all just part of our process, and we trust the process of our becoming, and we don't need to figure anything out. Everything is super well. It's a beautiful day. Let's see. That's subjective. She is home. She is sitting. She sees the grass. She sees a blue house. So we continue to get grounded in present day self, and then we shift and activate memories from childhood, and we just continue and try to weave them together. Oh yeah, that was the other thing. Great memory. So when we take notes in our mind, they're often processed as memories. It used to take a lot more to get them to a place of being able to consciously observe them. So it's cool that we can get there quicker. A lot quicker than we could a year ago. Which is funny to say because so much of my consciousness doesn't understand time. So saying a year ago is like, what does that mean? What is this year ago you speak of? What is this year ago you speak of? Okay, that was the other thing. Was descriptors. We tried all three, the things that we want to try in our experiment when we collaborate with neuroscientists. We tried not describing. We tried describing aloud, and we tried describing in our mind. And by describing, I mean present tense, third person, descriptors of sensory data. So what is sensed through the eyes, the body, the ears, the nose or the mouth if they're applicable, but they're often not, except when eating. So sensory data. And it's very objective. Like if I say it's a beautiful day, or if I say I'm having fun, that doesn't work because it's subjective and it's a summary. It doesn't connect the worlds. But if I describe the sensory data, especially in objective third person descriptors, very objective like she sees the blue sky kind of stuff. It has the potential to connect the internal and external realities. And so we tried not describing aloud, and describing internally, and they all have different effects. Not describing pushes things towards this side, which I can describe as the mind, external world, or left brain hemisphere for my own notes. And describing out loud connected dramatically with this side, the internal world, the body, the right brain hemisphere. And then describing in the mind was kind of this middle ground where it wasn't dramatically one side or the other. It was a little bit more balanced. And so it was noticing where the imbalance was and then using it to shift to the side that needed to be brought more into the present experience. And so noticing where the imbalance was and then applying accordingly really, really helped. So that's a pretty cool observation about our healing journey trick. Whew. And then just wanted to put a little more descriptor to this whole looking in the mirror thing, or witnessing myself. Like, if I don't look in the mirror and I'm out here and I'm looking at where I am and I'm talking as I am or whatever, there's just this lingering piece of anxiety because I don't really know who the I is within the experience. I'm kind of just energetically mushed in with all of it. My thoughts, my feelings, my environment. There's this energetic flow where my sense of self is so intertwined and mingled with these various aspects of experiential sensations that the sense of I is not separate from the sense of experience. What I see, what I feel, what I'm saying, they are my entire sense of self. I don't have a solidified, individualized, independently existing sense of self apart from the experience, and it creates quite a bit of anxiety. When I look in a mirror and I speak, I recognize that I am an individual person, I am a physical person, I am a grown woman, I am an adult, I have confidence to me, I have a mouth that moves, and that's where the sound of my voice is coming from. That was unclear before. And I look like someone that brings me a sense of comfort and ease in witnessing and observing, and the anxiety is reduced in the body. But if my mind thinks too hard about it, then there's more anxiety, like, holy crap, this is who I am and I'm not naturally aware of that. And so it takes some practice to be able to connect without allowing for the anxiety to shift its focus, and to allow for there to be a sense of ease of the anxiety instead. And so not having a solidified sense of self that exists independently of my experience causes anxiety. And then when I can create that connection and know that I am this person, I am a physical person, I am a grown woman, I look a lot like I did as a kid, but grown up, like kind of connecting the things that aren't naturally connected, the anxiety can be relieved in the body. It's very much a disconnect between internal and external worlds, and who I am here and now versus the energetic impressions of internal reality through experiential sensations. When I look in the mirror and I speak, I understand that I am a physical person and that I am not the experiential sensations. There's more of a sense of self that's accessible. There's more of an understanding that the being who is having the experience is separate from the particulars of the experience. It's a good way to describe that. But then, yeah, if there's too much awareness, then it just becomes anxiety provoking that this doesn't naturally exist. So kind of got to be gentle and soft and not allow for overthinking, but more of an emotional allowance of communicative connectivity of consciousness without allowing for thought forms of descriptive verbal narrative to spiral, if you will. Yeah, I think that kind of says it pretty well.